Thank you. After the tone, state your name, followed by the pound or hash sign. Thank you. You will now be placed into conference. To mute your line, press *6. To unmute, press #6.
We're very fortunate today to have two tenured breast care specialists with us that both have had a lot of success in the past selling capital. We're joined by Joey Baia and Rob Lowe. They've been kind enough to take some time out of their busy schedules in order to present the capital selling strategies that have proved successful in their respective territories. Kind of as a side note, this call will be archived and recorded so that anyone that missed it or wants to view it later can do so, and I'll be sending out a link probably later tomorrow afternoon or Monday morning, so you can do that at a later date. And with that, I'll just hand the call over to Rob and Joey.
Wow, that sounds really very official. I like that introduction. Well, Joey here. Thanks for everyone for listening and taking time out of your day to listen to today's call. Thank you, Cynthia and Amy, for setting this up. How nice of you to figure out how to use Microsoft Office Live Meeting. I guess really just starting off, I'm a big believer of sharing ideas, and if there's something in my little brain that can help out, the rest of the team here, I'm more than welcome to share the information with everyone. And I think between Rob and myself, I think you got about, in our tenure, probably well over $2 million in capital sales during our tenure at Ethicon. I think Rob actually did that all in 2007, right, Rob?
Still shy by about $200,000, but yeah.
and I like how you said, Amy, in the past of our success. So as you know, sales is like shaving. You got to do it every day to be successful. So 2009 is a new year, and obviously we all need to be out there selling capital. So hopefully today you'll learn something maybe that you're not doing, or that maybe you have forgotten about, or maybe just the best practice that that you haven't tried before, that might be successful for you in the future. So what we've done is we put together kind of a presentation that kind of gives you some ideas and steps to follow to successfully sell capital in your territory. Look at that. So what we'll be going through, and by the way, I know maybe some of you might not be watching the presentation, but you're just listening, and that's fine. We'll go ahead and explain each slide as we go through them, so don't feel like you're going to be left out. So what I'll be doing is we'll rank the target capital opportunities that reside in your territory. We'll talk about what kind of information you need to have to properly target those opportunities and how to follow through with them. How do you get an evaluation, and how do you close the deal? And then we'll get into some other areas of capital opportunities that you might already be doing or might not be. So the list here is kind of what I have come up with, and Rob and I have talked about this last night and said that this is, kind of like a good way to really summarize how you might want to spend your day, your week, your month, and your year. And essentially, it's a targeting list of who you need to really focus in on, where you need to spend your time. And I ranked them here 1 through 7. And the first one is going to be your Model 2000 users. So those are the folks out there that have the original NeoProbe device that was sold to them way back when NeoProbe, came out with the original gamma detection device. If you don't know, that information resides with your ISC rep. Mine is Barb Sturgill, and there's a report that has been furnished to me, several times throughout the year that provides that information. As recently, I think, as this last quarter, we received a report that actually showed every capital device that's in your territory and when it's coming up for renewal, for warranty renewal. Then at the bottom of the page, it actually showed do not quote, because they, of course, are the Model 2000s and no longer can be under warranty. So what you can do from that report is you obviously can find out who has a Model 2000 if you don't know that information already, and then also cross-reference that list with who actually has a warranty, who purchases a warranty every year for that Model 2000. Once you've done that, now you can contact that OR and let them know that they will no longer be able to purchase a warranty for their current device. And if they want to purchase a warranty and continue having that service, then they obviously need to upgrade to the GDS. That is just simple, low-hanging fruit that I feel that, you know, everyone should be doing if they're not doing already, and the information is already really in your computer. Rob, anything else, Rob, you want to add on that? Or?
No, it's really important to stay, you know, dialed into where your targets and your opportunities are, and that spreadsheet. I mean, they've done a lot of good work there at the ISC to get that information for us. You know, it is something that we're talking about. It is important to be there in the accounts to verify the information. So as you're going through, it's just another call point. You're providing a service to help them out, which the other directors and everyone there would appreciate just taking a look at their system, and you can verify serial numbers and if the model that's on the spreadsheet is in fact correct or not, but a lot of times it is. So, no, that's great.
Okay. Then the second target that I have on my list is your largest hospital, your A account. Verify whether or not they have, in fact, a second neoprobe. My largest 10 accounts all have a second neoprobe, and I would say at least half of them have been because I've been involved with trying to get them to purchase another neoprobe. So that can easily be found from your warranty list that obviously we talked about before. And essentially, what you need to do is find out if they don't have one, then obviously go to the OR to discuss with the OR whether or not it's been a conflict in the past with second requirements for sentinel node biopsies. And a lot of times in these larger hospitals, at least in mine, you'll have maybe 2 or 3 ORs. You'll have like a same-day surgery OR, and then you'll have like the main OR. And a lot of times sentinel node biopsies are really being done in same-day surgery. However, some cases might be done in the main OR because the patient might have more complications and there's more resources available in the main OR. So that's really the purpose why they might perform that procedure in the main OR versus the same day. So the third... Go ahead, Rob.
You can ask your surgeon directly, too. Sometimes my experience has been, in the OR, people are good employees, and they don't really want to say, there's a conflict, and surgeon so-and-so got upset. That's where your quality time is, going over to the office, talking to the staff, or talking to the surgeon directly, or even, just right outside the room, just not in front of everybody, asking, have you run into a conflict before? And the surgeons are usually pretty, they're pretty out there saying, I have, and I wish this would be different, or that would be different. So it gives you some validation and ammunition to go in and say, look, I understand that this is happening. But sometimes I've found that the OR staff doesn't want to actually, out themselves of what's going on.
Thanks, Rob. The third one on the list here is competitive devices. I would say that out of all the competitive devices that I've encountered, I would say the number one target that I would put on my list today, if you're not already doing it, is navigators. They're older. Most of the ones that I've seen, they're really old. So there's obviously some antiquation that's going on with that. There might be some issues, technical issues with the battery, and so on. And most importantly, as I'll talk about here in a little bit, they are just not anywhere near the level of sophistication that the neoprobe is. And I'll go into, exactly how you work that. But in my experience, I've been batting 1,000 on every single navigator that I've ever been up against when that's been the incumbent. So I would suggest if you're going to go after a hospital that has already a gamma detection device, my number one choice would be the navigator. And then my number 4 target would be your non-Bluetooth users. So obviously you have neoprobes that are in your territory, and as part of your budget this year, you have to sell X amount of Bluetooth, and those are your other targets. What I would suggest you would do in conjunction with your non-Bluetooth users is I would check to see how old their machine is. So like your Model 2000 users, non-Bluetooth users, those would be like the first ones that I would target. And the reason why is because one of the other things that you can do when you're at the hospital already is do a performance check. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So you can check the integrity of the probe to determine whether or not the probe is actually working properly. The fifth thing that's on my list is the warranties. I have in the past not really been a big advocate of warranties, but I think given our environment that we're in and with capital freezes and so on, I think you need to exhaust every bit of energy with everything that's in our bag, and warranties just happens to be one of them. And it's been my experience this year that a lot of times your ISC, just because of default, might not have all of the information on who it's supposed to properly get to make a decision whether or not they want to purchase a warranty or not. And then just finally here, you have your MR upgrades, obviously, and new Mammoth-tone units. We just received a couple emails a couple minutes ago from the East, and there has been, I think, 7 or 8 reps that were on this list that sold, in total, of all those reps, over $600,000 this week alone. So my point for telling you is that, someone's buying capital somewhere, but don't feel like, if you haven't had success in the past in some of your hospitals, don't feel like, you're not going to be able to in the future because they're buying stuff. And I just saw the email today. Finally, just number 6 is new hospitals or a new surgeon. A lot of times, I've seen surgeons that are doing breast work at one hospital, and then they end up getting the rights to go to another hospital, and they want to start a breast program, etc. And I've had opportunities and have sold equipment through that channel to start a new breast program. So be aware of that. And then go ahead, Rob.
On that last one, the new surgeon there, I'll share with everybody. I ran into a situation in one of my hospitals. That exact situation happened, but I was not aware of the process until he had already gotten over there. And if you can get on that early, you'll facilitate, because the OR director was also new, did not know that she needed to put in a request for equipment for this new surgeon ahead of time, got there, was kind of stuck. Surgeon wasn't very happy. We'll play an intricate role as the reps in that of facilitating purchasing of the equipment for a new surgeon, because some of these OR directors don't realize what they're using, because they're not going to talk to a competitive hospital. They don't have friends there, or they just don't. So we're really the facilitation there. So as soon as you can find out, is there any shift or movement, you're going to go to that new place and start giving them the information of what that doctor likes, how they use it, and why it's important to have it there.
Yeah, good point. And last but not least here, I've heard of a lot of reps that they'll be, kind of being toyed with or taken advantage of by borrowing the neoprobes, et cetera. I'm sure you all maybe have experienced something of that nature. Well, I'd say I'm more so proactive on the APP 100s than ever before. If someone wants to borrow your device or if someone wants to borrow yourself for in-servicing, I'm more inclined, unless there's a sales opportunity there afterwards, I'm more inclined to charge them for the visit or the right to use the device than ever before. So I just throw that out there just to let everybody know that is available to you and it is a tool. Last thing on this slide that I will mention, and I don't know, Rob, how you work your funnel, but 2 things that I have seen in the past from reps is that, they expect a capital sale to happen overnight. They expect a capital sale to be something that, doesn't take, that long to produce a sale. And, sometimes they're not, but sometimes they can be really long. So my point for telling you this is that you need to have a very healthy capital funnel. And I usually recommend, depending on who you are and how many neoprobes you have in your territory, your budget could be anywhere between like 200 to 300, let's say. You need to really have something in the neighborhood of around $600,000 to really make your number, because as you know, some of them might not close this year, some of them might not ever close, and some of them might close next year. So a lot of the sales that I heard about this last week have been from situations where reps have had deals on the table from last year and they finally closed this year. So my point is you need to start early with capital sales and you need to be doing it often. And I would say that, again, with our current environment that we're in, you need to be doing it more than you had been in the past, just because it is going to be more of a challenge to sell capital this year than in the years past.
That 1/3 rule is pretty accurate. So,
is that what you do about that? And that's what mine is.
Yeah. Well, when you obviously with the current times, it's a little bit harder to gauge. But the year that I did close, '07, there, when I had about 500K that I'd sold in capital, it was around 1.5 that I had there in the funnel working, which then trickled over to the beginning of the next year. So
Yep.
that 1/3 rule is pretty accurate.
Okay, good. So moving on to the next slide here, I'm a big believer in the power of information. I feel that, half the challenge with our positions is that, we drive a lot, we have a lot of downtime, a lot of wasted time. So I try to optimize my day as much as I humanly possibly can by having the information in front of me so I know when and where I need to be. So it's important that we all know, everybody in our accounts, who is responsible for using gamma detection devices. You can get this information a lot of times by simply asking when you're already in the hospital doing mammotone cases or whatever on the mammography side. You can find OR directors. Getting information at a hospital has not been an issue whatsoever for me at all. You just simply need to ask and be there. You also can get information from your warranty report, as we talked about. You also can get information, obviously, from IntelliPort. So what I've done in my territory that I think maybe some of you have seen is I have a spreadsheet, just a one-pager that lists all of my accounts. It has their Johnson & Johnson account number. It has if they have a neoprobe, is it a 2000? Is it a Bluetooth? Do they have a navigator? So I've identified every single one of my accounts, who has a gamma detection, what they have, how many they have, and what year it was purchased in. So in other words, I've highlighted the neoprobes that are the model 2000, for instance. And I can show you that to you at the end here if we have time. And then, finally, the ones that aren't doing sentinel node biopsies are also identified on this spreadsheet. And Rob, I don't know what you do for your stuff. Have you broken all that stuff down, or how do you keep track of that?
There's a set of spreadsheets that when I first came in as a rep, the rep before me, Summer Fataya, had broken down well, so I was able to take that and utilize those and just update those periodically. So yes, what you're saying is done, but it's not, and it's on the focus points of the equipment that they have and who are the doctors that they're using. I mean, it could even go further into the C-level folks and other things like that. But yeah, it's important to have, a good informational idea of what's going on in your accounts.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So just moving on to the next slide, again, getting into the power of information. We talked about identifying all of the players involved with the account. Who is the lead surgeon? You can easily find that out by asking someone in the OR or one of your mammo techs who does the most amount of breast work. Who's the director of the OR? Who's responsible for equipment? Who's in biomed? Who's the OR educator? Those sort of things. Those are the people that you want to understand, who's there, and what's their name, what's their phone number, what's their email. And then once you get that kind of information, now you can talk to the OR director. If it is a smaller hospital or if it's a larger hospital, you might be dealing with somebody that's involved with the equipment. How are decisions made here? When does their fiscal year end? How do you set up budget for capital devices? What is the protocol for demonstrating equipment? I mean, I've had everything from they have a capital committee that meets once a month, and I had to fill out a form that explain what the device is and why. You want to present this to the surgeons. I've had, you need to sign in here. You need to get a badge for this. So whatever that protocol for demonstrating equipment is, you need to know up front so that you're properly prepared the next time you come there, because obviously if you don't do that, you won't have the opportunity much longer. I think fiscal year is another big deal. I think a lot of times reps might not know this in their hospitals. That's very, very important. You can sometimes even find that on their website so that you know when they're budgeting to purchase things. And sometimes I've had situations that I've been very fortunate. I'm sure, Rob, you have too, where it's the end of August or the end of June and their fiscal year is ending and they have money left over, and you were sending out information about a Bluetooth upgrade. I've sold several upgrades because of the fact that a hospital had money left over and wanted to spend it. And believe it or not, that's been successful for me in the past. So if I know when a hospital is going to have their year end, I might potentially send out something to them that's maybe a Bluetooth or whatever I'm trying to promote, and see if I can't get a sale from the leftover money that's in their budget.
The military hospitals are really, really big on that too. I mean, they always have money left over at the end, and their fiscal year starts October 1. So September 15th to the end of that month, they've got a lot of leftover money, and they need to spend it, or else they're not going to have the same budgets next year. So I don't know if how many of you have military hospitals, but those are definitely key targets. And knowing that fiscal year, when you're talking about it first, Joe, is very important. I can't tell you the number of things that have worked out, and when I was a new rep, didn't work out because I had just gotten to the account, and we just closed off our year, but we can put it in for next year. Well, a whole year obviously came back around, but you don't want to be in that situation. I mean, that's really key to know their timeline so that you can cater to it.
Absolutely. So just moving right along here to slide 6. So once you have gathered that information and have determined, your strategy for moving forward, you know who the surgeons are, you know the game that you're playing in. Obviously, you want to go and get the surgeon to evaluate or to commit to the evaluation. And I've heard reps in the past, they'll go to their offices and they'll bring in the neoprobe, they'll have the isotope there, and they'll say, "Wow, look, surgeon, see how this picks up, these counts." And to me, that hasn't really been the way I've done it. The way I do is I seek out the surgeon to really just talk about the neoprobe for 30 or 60 seconds. Just have an elevator speech, have the high points about why he or she should try using the neoprobe. And I explained to that surgeon that not only will I be there during the case so you can evaluate my device, but I'll have your device available as well, so that they have a comfort zone, if you will, of knowing that their device is going to still be there in case ours doesn't work, or for whatever apprehension they might have of using a newer device. And that's usually what I've done to ask for a surgeon to commit to doing the case, and that really hasn't been that big of a deal to me. And the person that I normally ask to do that is going to be obviously the medical director for the OR, or the surgeon that does the most amount of breast surgery, or someone that's got a big mouth, someone that that is influential in the account, that is interested in trying something new. So it just depends, and usually I find that information out from the people that work in the hospital. Once I've done that, obviously I go back to the OR administration and explain to them that I'm going to be doing this case, and that I will provide an in-service the day of, and that I will be here, during the case. The other thing that I do as well during that time is I try very hard to get the doc's email address, and I'll explain in a minute why I want to have that. Rob, anything else on this slide?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
So the day of the case, when you get there, one of the things that I would suggest you do, I heard a lot of complaints from reps in the past that, selling capital or selling neoprobes requires a lot of our time, which, I don't necessarily disagree with. But one of the things that you need to do is again, power of information, is I usually call the OR the day of or the day before to make sure that case is in fact going to happen. Because as you probably know, sometimes cases can be changed or canceled or whatever. So not to waste my time to drive all the way out to wherever, I make sure that case is in fact going to happen. I provide an in-service to the nurses. I get there early. I make sure that I tell the scrub tech, whoever's going to be in the room operating the equipment, to make sure that they have that competitive device available for the case. If it's a Navigator, C-Track, or if it's just a regular neoprobe, I make sure that they have that set up so the doctor, can use that device along with mine, so that they can actually see the differences in sensitivity. That is the most important part of the day for you. Then once the surgeon is there, I just more or less ask for when he wants to know about the machine. If it's during when he's scrubbing in, or if it's before, that's fine. And I just go through the differences of the machine, what to look out for, and make sure to just kind of highlight the features to the neoprobe that he might not have with his competitive device or what he's currently using.
Yeah, as far as explaining the differences of the two machines, I think the more technical, completely down in the weeds, but you can let them know, hey, up here is the crystal, and it's larger, it's more receptive, it's more sensitive, which is why we're getting this. So the more that you can add to your credibility in that on the technical side without getting too deep in the weeds, makes you more of a technical expert consultant right off the bat with these guys, and more validation for why they're seeing. The last thing you want to not really be able to support what's happening. Wow, your counts are better. They're more, more sensitive. What's going on? Well, not really sure. Oh, those are the flukes. The more that you can support why what's happening is happening, the more it just closes down the deal.
Yeah, I'm real sensitive to that too, Rob. I try to give the highlights without getting into the weeds too much, because I think if you provide too many details, you scare them. I mean, that's the same way with the mammatone as well. I mean, if I have a duck using the thing for the first time, I try not to go into the details too much, only because of you're afraid that you're going to kind of
mind boggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. The other thing that I guess you need to know too, that you might not know, is that if you are comparing a navigator, because I know there's a lot of navigators on the East Coast, I don't know about the West, but if you are comparing a navigator, you need to make sure that the neoprobe counts are per second. And if you do the same, if you do a target count with a navigator, the counts are per 10 seconds. So if you want to compare, you need to divide the navigator count by 10, or just add a 0 to the neoprobe. So you need to make sure you tell that to the surgeon up front if they're going to accurately compare. But even not even doing that, I've had situations more times than not where we're still higher than the navigator. And by the way, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them if you'd like. All right, next slide. So I will repeat the process with other surgeons if that was part of the criteria for selling the capital equipment. The other thing that I forgot to tell you about too is, once you have gotten the evaluation or have gotten the approval to do that, what I typically will do is I will email the OR director or whoever is responsible for the budget, which typically is the OR director, along with the surgeon and anyone else that's involved with the situation, the buying criteria. So in other words, when we talked about going to see these people and they've agreed to do the evaluation, what does it take for you to buy capital equipment? What I make sure that I do is I email this to the people, the party involved, with a list of what they said that I had to do, so that they confirm, they know that this is what's going to happen, and if I do all of these things that you told me to do, then at the end of those tasks being completed, I expect to get a PO. And that's how I write the email. So on the final slide here, the close. So what I would do with each surgeon as well during your case is that at the end of the case, these surgeons are all pretty much used to evaluating equipment and being able to respond. So a lot of times what they do is they'll fill out a form. What I've done in the past, I've done both. I've done forms, and then I've also just sent them an email saying, do you approve the purchase of the neoprobe? And when they respond, that's usually all it takes for me to go and show that to the OR director as part of the commitment to purchase the equipment. And normally the surgeon's going to go tell the OR director anyway, but this is something that you can document so that all parties can see.
That's a great point, though.
Yeah.
Well, we do it, with our mammatome of setting up the parameters for the evaluation. Great point.
No, I mean it's the same thing it's the same thing if you're doing an evaluation for a competitive account for mammatone, or if you're doing an evaluation for EX, whatever. What is the business criteria for making a decision? And document it and have it be tangible, and if it's not, you need to figure that out, and you need not to move forward until you have, because you'd be wasting your time. And I guess, last but not least, the other things that you might want to follow up on with the OR director once you've completed that is, what difficulties, what do you expect with getting this purchased? What issues do you think, could come up? Because something might have changed since the time that you started the evaluation to the time you've closed it, or you potentially have closed it. So you want to get clarification on that. You want to know what person has to sign off on it. Is it a CFO? Is it a CEO? Is it the vice president? and so on. You want to know who those people are. And like I said before, too, the process I've had where it's been a month, and I've had some that have actually been, a year and a half. I had a VA that purchased something, a year and a half after I, evaluated and had the cases completed. So, capital definitely is something that has to be worked on frequently, and it's certainly not something that you can expect to close, every day. This next slide I just went into, the increased sensitivity. So the average excision rate, is 2.4. So kind of like my elevator speech, sometimes the surgeons is that, if they are looking to, really increase their performance on the sensitivity, one of the reasons why I would tell them that is that if you have a lesion that's, level 2 or level 3, it's on the pec, and you're having difficulty locating that lesion, or you essentially give up, this increased sensitivity might help you, doctor, with being able to locate those other nodes, especially if you're falling below the average excision rate of 2.4. Rob, I don't know if there's anything else on there that you wanted to explain on your elevator speech there.
Just hitting the high points, making it pretty clear and concise, getting the information across that there's no question this is a sensitive, accurate device for you. Why would you want to waste your time with something else?
Right. These are just some examples that I've been involved with. I think the first one that I can mention to you, though, that is not a success yet, but it's a good example, I think, for all of us, is that Ronan Regional was the hospital that has a C-track, and I was involved with it last year. I did an evaluation and did all the steps that I mentioned to you earlier here, and now because of the capital freeze, they have, not purchased the device. It's been approved. The OR director has explained to me, the details. He told me the person that's involved. So now my next step is, and I just found this out recently, my next step is that I plan to go back to the OR director and ask for her permission to walk me to the CFO so that we can have a discussion on why they're not purchasing it. And that'll do two things. The first thing it'll do is it'll tell me whether or not the OR director is being genuine, which I believe she is. And two, it'll give me a reason to get in front of the CFO and possibly have that conversation about buying the equipment. A couple other examples here is that I've had surgeons, that have dual rights at multiple hospitals. Fry Regional, I sold a Bluetooth there, and then the surgeon that was involved with using it over there worked at Catawba Regional, and so they wanted it over at that hospital, so I kind of had like a double whammy hit, if you will, and the surgeon did all the work for me. I really didn't have to do much work at all. Tacoma was another one where I've loaned them the Neoprobe in the past. They're a small hospital, small regional hospital, and we're tired of getting a loaner and tired of borrowing one from their competitive hospital, so they decided to buy one after about 2 years of working on that. So these are just some of the examples. Another one I think here, a Trillion, I guess is a good example too. I found out through my core rep that they were evaluating a gamma detection device. And as you all know, sometimes it's difficult to get to every one of your hospitals, at the right time when they're doing these things. I was aware they had a competitive device, but I was not aware that they were evaluating something. So it just so happens the core rep told me this, and I was there the next day getting the evaluation, and I ended up selling the Bluetooth to that hospital, and they no longer purchased, that they were evaluating the Navigator. Rob, is there any other examples that you might want to share, or anything else that?
That's your relationship there with core rep is going to be just invaluable. It's really important to have eyes on the scene. We, with the exception of a few territories, they're huge, and you're not going to be able to be, 1/10 of the time that you want to be there with these accounts. So building that relationship with the core reps has really helped me, especially, my furthest point out there is pretty much the Albuquerque area. Got great relationships with my core reps there. But, contacting, building a relationship when you're there, spending a little bit of time with that OR director, where you can pick up the phone, call and say, hey, where are we in this? I'm going to be meeting with Dr. So-and-so next week when I'm in town, or in 2 weeks, and they're going to ask me, what's going on. with this, I want to be able to tell them, you're giving them a reason that you're not just badgering them, but that, you have that relationship where you can also just ask the question directly, and that will work for you. That's worked very well for me over the years, being able just to call into the OR, say, where are we in the process, where's the hold-up, and how can I help you so that we can get this in for your doctors and get moving forward. And they're pretty open with me. So, I think between the core reps and your own communication, you don't have to be there all the time and still be as effective.
Okay. The last couple slides here, just some examples of things that to look out for. This is something that we received last year. This is the Neo 2000 product summary. Unfortunately, this slide is not 100% accurate because the Model 2000 at the bottom here, Bluetooth upgradable, it is in fact upgradable. So I think this came out originally when they maybe weren't with the software that we were given, but now they are. But I just wanted to emphasize that, there's 550 Model 2000s out there, and obviously some of those reside in your territory. And so those are the ones that you need to target because you know that those are the oldest units out there that potentially either need to be upgraded because they're no longer going to be warranted, or they have an old probe that potentially isn't working to the specs that it's supposed to. And I'll get into that, how to check for probe performance here in a second. Next one here is just want to make sure everybody knew or knows how to check a NIA probe. So for this slide here shows the difference between the Model 2000, the 2100s, and the 2200 or 2300s. Essentially, the 2000s just have a little stick man, the 2100s have a stick man with a box around it, and the 2200s have a heart. So when you go into your OR, this is something that you can easily see and look for to know whether or not which ones they have. But again, you should really already have this information available to you through your ISC. And then the next slide here is, and I don't know how many of you are doing this, but this was Fahim Smith's deal last year. And I didn't really start doing it until really the end of last year, the beginning of this year. And I would say to you that out of the 10 or so that I've checked, I'm batting about 33%. This week alone, I checked, I think, 4 total probes, 3 hospitals, 4 probes, and 3 out of the 4 fell below the sensitivity set by the NeoProbe Corporation. So this form here that you see was produced by James Starr, and essentially what it's doing is he brings this into his hospital, fills the form out, performs the performance check, and then provides this documentation to the hospital. What I've been doing on top of that as well is I actually bring in a copy of the performance check, which is in every NeoProbe warranty. You can download on the internet, or most hospitals should have a copy of it sitting with their NeoProbe. I just have simply a copy of the 2 pages that talk about how to do a performance check. And I bring that in with me. I ask for the biomed guy, and I ask to see the NeoProbe. I tell them why I'm there, and I do the performance check right in front of them. And when they come up short, I show the biomed guy, which every single person that I've talked to in biomed has no idea, that they had to do this or check this. And so I'm there to inform the biomed people on how to do this performance check. But more importantly, I'm there to help emphasize or to build the credibility that if in fact the probe does not work, that the biomed guy can acknowledge that to the OR director. So the 3 out of the 4 that I checked today or this week, 3 of them were damaged, and I expect to get a PO for 2 Bluetooths because of that. And that's $20,000 just from a performance check, and it only took me a couple minutes, and I was already at the hospitals anyway. Last slide here. Or second to last slide. This is just a report. You probably can't see it that well, but this is a report that everybody should have a copy of. This is essentially every territory broken out by NeoProbe and Mammotone, what hospital has what equipment and when the warranty is going to run out. So these are every one of your pieces of capital equipment that's going to expire in 2009. And typically what the ISC is doing is they're sending out notification or quotes 2 months before the actual expiration date. So what I would suggest, and this is what I've been doing proactively this year, is that when I see something that's coming down the pike that's going to be renewed, I'm proactively going to the hospital, making sure that the contact that we have, if it's Biomed or whoever is responsible for the warranty, that it's correctly identified and in my Outlook email system. And I will tell you that now that I've been doing this, I've seen I've seen half of the warranty renewals going to the wrong person, or maybe it's faxed when it could have been emailed. And as we all know, sometimes faxes don't get received or seen. So, it's been half the business of mine that is just, successfully getting to the right person. And that's been very valuable to me because I've sold, I think, I don't know how much I've sold, but I've been, I think like maybe 8 out of the 10 renewals that I've had have sold. Rob, anything on warranty renewals that you've been doing, or?
No, just within the accounts, going ahead and making sure that that information is accurate. That really helps. Or having that relationship with your ISP, they'll identify. You'll work with them and you'll identify, say, your top 5, top 10, and they'll need a little bit of, eyes on the scene, some help, and let them know why these warranties are really important instead of just the automatic response. So, absolutely. I mean, it really does come down to, on these warranties for everybody involved, that you got the right information. And
I think the message here, too, is I don't expect people to exhaust a ton of energy on warranties, but if you're already in a hospital and you're already going to be in town, why would you not go and get this information? And I know in my territory it's fluctuated year over year, but I get somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 in warranty sales a year, and that could be a third or approximately half of my budget for capital. Last slide here, and I don't know. I think you guys received this email for the West. This is a picture of your Outlook, Microsoft Outlook contact page. And essentially what I'm asking and want you all to try doing, if you're not doing this already, is if you notice in the left-hand side of this page, in your Outlook contact page, it says Share My Contacts folder. If you press that button and bring up that window, it'll actually bring up the same window that you would see if you're trying to email somebody, and just select your ISC contact, and then now they can actually see every single one of your contacts. It's just a great way to communicate with the ISC without actually physically being on the phone with them, and it helps their job out by identifying who to be sending, quotes to. And not only that, it updates too. As I had a great example this week, as a matter of fact. I had a global setting office that was up for renewal, and I was calling on some other business, and I just found out that the office manager left, and I didn't know that. So I got the new office manager's name and email. I changed it in my Outlook that morning, and that afternoon, ironically, Barb Sturgill was sending an email out to that practice administrator to the correct person. So, the power of information can be great. I didn't have to bother, calling Barb to say, hey, you sent it to a person that, is not going to work. She already had the correct information. So I would encourage all of you to share your contacts if you're not doing so already. And that really concludes my presentation. And Rob, I don't know if you have anything else to add to this, or...
I think we should just open up for some questions.
If you've muted your phone, I think it's Amy. I don't know. Is it *6?
Yeah, it's #6 to mute, and then *6 to unmute.
Isn't it the other way, though?
That's #6 now. So.
Anyway, anybody have any questions about capital selling timelines? How it is we go about grabbing up sales in this tougher economy?
Rob, this is Diana. Hi.
Hi.
I don't so much as have a question as a comment. I had somehow through an email found out about Joey's Share My Contact thing. I didn't know you could ever do that. And another great thing to do with that is to have your core reps share their breast surgeon contacts with you. and instantly you have all of their emails, addresses, cell phone numbers, everything, and just a different way to use that same information.
That's a great idea. I never thought of that, Dan. That's awesome.
Yep, that is. That is. I think that in capital sales, I mean, we go through and we do our disposable business where we're there, we're supporting them, working with them, and capital gets to be posed as this completely different animal. It is a different animal, but I don't think it's that different of an animal. I mean, periodic contact. There was an old manager of mine had shared with me that I want to say it was about 95% of the business closed, especially on the capital side, comes after your 100th contact. And it doesn't have to be eyes on scene or you're there in their face, just so much as you're supporting, finding out what's going on, finding out where the weak link is, and then setting up the appointments you need to go attack that because you're ultimately helping the operating room get what they need for their patients, and the surgeon's happy as well. So it really just comes down to consistent, continual contact with people.
It's no different than the Mammoth Zone. If you want to sell A-Gauge, you want to sell EX, you got to show up.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for the neophobe. So if there's not any other questions, I guess we're all done here. See?
Oh, sorry, Joey. Thank you for your time today, both of you. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know
no problem.
It's a busy time of year for everyone, but I think this will really help us out. So thanks for your time, and thanks for everybody for signing on today. And look for that link later Friday or Monday morning.
I think with Hit the Ground Running coming up, Bluetooth probes could be a key for the next week left over.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you later.
Good evening.
Take care.